Welcome into the FutureSox RoundUp. My name is Elijah Evans. I'm joined by my co-host Dylan Barnas. We are back. We are post-draft. Exciting time of year. We wrapped up the MLB Draft as you record here on Thursday the 15th. The draft was Sunday, Monday. It was crazy
Yeah.
with the 2 days draft now. We knew it'd be a little bit nuts, but the first day I was like, man, this first round's taking forever. And they actually did a pretty good job with day 2 and 3 speeding through it. Day two, I was off doing a million things. I was at the home run derby that day. We were working on some stuff in Atlanta. But then it was just like, I was like, man, we're going on 7, 8 hours of draft. I know you were locked in more than I was,
Oh,
Dylan,
yeah.
throughout that time. How was that experience of a 8 hour draft day?
I mean, I was up in front of my computer at 10:25 because the draft kicked off at 10:30, and
Crazy.
then it was nonstop just looking through picks, like seeing who was going off the board until 6. Like it was
Nuts.
nuts, but
Nuts.
it was really fun. I think the 2-day draft was hectic for sure, but I think there's a lot of there's still a lot of negotiation that happens because the break that happens in between rounds 10 and 11, you're able to negotiate a bit similar to what we saw in the fourth round this year, where there's high schoolers that were able to negotiate deals overnight. They're going in the
Yeah.
fourth now instead of the third because that was the start of day two usually. So it was pretty interesting, but I think that this new draft is hectic, but it's kind of good.
Yeah, it was fascinating, man. There are a lot of high school guys going fourth, fifth, which we wouldn't have
Yeah.
seen in the past. I think you pointed that out, but that was very interesting to me to see the way teams attacked day two early and often after that first day where there was some money saving picks, right? You saw some guys like a Jordan Yost, the Tigers, who was kind of projected in that second, third round range because first round of the Tigers. What do the Tigers do day two when they get some time to work overnight and in the morning, right? They cook and they go out and get three big
Yep.
high school names in the first half of day two there. So it really changes draft in a pretty cool way. I thought it's unique. I mean, I'm very much against the draft being during All Star Weekend. I think that in
Yeah.
itself is silly. I think that just was weird. But and I don't know if they're going to fix that at some point. Maybe the next CBA it changes back to June or something. But regardless of that, I think the 2 day worked. It was a little crazy though, for sure.
Yeah, definitely. Uh, White Sox had a very solid draft. I don't know what your thoughts on it are,
Yeah,
but like my overall expectations were blown out of the water. I did not think that Billy Carlson and Jaden Fauske would be the haul, but
neither
I
did
am
I.
I'm very happy with it. So what did you think about the overall? I don't want to put a grade on it because we don't really like grades, but if you had to if you had to just give your opinion on the class, what would you say?
Yeah, I think overall it was a good haul. I mean, I had been so Carlson's the one who we've been talking Carlson and Parker, JoJo Parker and Billy Carlson have kind of been those two targets. You when you get that chance, like it was there. It was there for the taking. It was the right pick. I think that it was just only what was going to happen there was the White Sox were going to take the upside bat that fell to them, right? And like that was the way they were going to go with it. Luckily, the craziness at the top, and I got to get this off the bat. Shout out to my guy Tyler Remner because that was
Yep.
crazy. And a lot of people, I hate that he's going to get hate for this because it's like, what is he supposed to
Right.
do? Say no, I don't want to go second overall? Like, no, he's going to say yes, of course. So the tricky thing, like the Angels being a weird, confusing, ridiculous organization is going to look kind of badly on Bremner, but that's not his fault, right? He picked up the phone and said, heard he's getting drafted second overall. Of course he's going to go there. Like, what's
Right.
going to happen, right? So the Angels being weird, though, led to the White Sox, getting Carlson ultimately because it opened up some stuff. And the Reds also choosing to go with, the long term projectable guy. I was kind of surprised because I ultimately thought the Reds were going to open with pitching there. I kind of thought Kyson
Yeah.
Witherspoon was going to go there or Donald was going to go there when that pick came around, and then them going, and then I ended up hearing from his buddies, oh, the Reds are looking at prep guys, and I was like, oh man, are they about to take Carlson and put the White Sox in a position where they're going Billy Carl or going Jamie Arnold, which I don't think Jamie Arnold is bad. I like Jamie Arnold as a pitcher. I didn't want him in this draft based on his profile, based on the White Sox system. I was not wanting Arnold at that pick. So then when I saw the Reds pick come in, I was like, okay, this is Carlson. Then, like at that
Right.
point, it was like, all right. And then I was texting some people, and it was like, they'd be shocked if it wasn't Carlson once the board came out for the first 9, right? So it's so interesting to see how all of that shakes out in the MLB draft because you really never know what to expect. But at the end of the day, like Carlson, in my opinion, was the right pick there. And then, I interviewed, everybody should check it out for sure. I interviewed Coach Milano
Definitely.
and Joe Milano of Nazareth Academy, and I've been talking to them back and forth for a while about Fauske and, what's going to happen, where's he going to go, talk to some other people about it. And when we got to the end of the first round, there was a couple teams I was kind of eyeing where it was like, okay, Fausti's been talking to these teams. I knew he'd been kind of in the realm of possibilities for certain teams, right? So we get to, this interesting point in the draft where you've got these comp picks, and then you got the prospect promotion picks, and then you have the comp picks, the 1C and then the CBAA or the CBA. So we get to the comp round. I'm looking at Milwaukee at 32, and then I'm looking at Tampa at 42. Those are the two spots where I've heard they've been talking to Fausti for a long time. I honestly think that the White Sox bought him down, and we're not going to see numbers yet, but I do think that went to around that 30 round after the initial full first round, the White Sox paid up to get him to a value that's as high as that Brewers 32 pick, and probably even a little bit higher than that slot value at that spot, right? So the Brewers pick at 32, the slot value is 2.97. I think Fausti's going to get about $3 million, honestly. I do. I think it's going to be in that range, and I think that the White Sox, there's something to be said for the local team. They keep doing this. They've done this, at least once in the past 4 drafts now that they've gotten a hometown guy. And I think that Fausti, he played for the White Sox organization when that became a possibility, as long as they met the price. And I do think that they met the price because I think Carlson will be a bit under slot. And I think that a couple picks they saved on earlier to be able to, give Fausti that $3 million or so.
Yeah, I think that you hit the nail on the head right there. I think Fausti is probably going to get 3 million. Like, I could see if, like, I don't want to say
Yeah.
he turned down money to go to his hometown team and the
No,
team that
I
he's
don't
been
think
a
so.
fan of before, but like if they just match the number that the
Right.
Brewers were offering, I think he probably would have chosen to go to the White Sox. And we won't know because we're not going to hear what the Brewers were offering, but it would not shock me at all if the number comes out for Fausti's signing bonus and it's 3 million or, like 2.98, just like slightly above what the Brewers
Sure.
could offer. So I think that was exactly what the White Sox were hoping for. And, it ended up happening. I think that, like I said,
Yeah.
Carlson and Fausti were the dream haul.
And we have somebody asking about, the opinions of everything that we have heard from the media and from Mike Shirley and from Chris Getz and from the organization and from James Fox as well. Like, everything we're being told is that Carlson was looked at by the White Sox as a elite talent in this draft, not just
Yeah.
the 10th best talent, but higher than that, frankly. And I think that's something to keep an eye on for his bonus. I think that he's going to get paid. I don't think it's going to be over slot. I think it might be slightly under, but I
Mhm.
do think that the White Sox valued Carlson to the extent of, like, as high as a schooler not named Eli Willits or Jackson Holiday, right? Like, I think he was seen as that, third tier of high schoolers behind those two initial names of, like, if we can get this guy, we're going to get him, and we're going to get him with whatever it takes at that point, right? So I'm excited about those two. I was fired up initially. I think that it was the right way. We've talked about this. We've talked about it online. I think most White Sox fans would agree, and you always have some people that are going to disagree, but, like, I think that the two upside high school bats was the way to attack this draft, given
Definitely.
the college class, given the organizational status, given the need for hitting, given the need for long-term hitting more than short-term hitting. Two high school bats off the bat, and a third really good to get to soon in the 4th round, right? So 3 of 4 first being high school bats. Like, it's a really good way to approach the organizational status of this team. And I do think that it was ultimately the right decision to go with the 2 high school guys, to get 2 really high upside guys. And these aren't just guys that, oh, we love one tool of theirs. Like, these are multifaceted players, and that's what I'm
Right.
really excited with Billy Carlson. You've got the best. Everybody I've talked to, like, literally says it's the best defensive shortstop they've seen in, like as good as any shortstop they've seen defensively
Yeah.
in a few years out of high school, right? So super interesting. I think that he defensively has already an elite glove, right? So you're getting a
Definitely.
shortstop going forward, and then the power projection. And I think that Carlson, like, from everybody I've talked to, like, there's still some swing adjustments to be made there. So I think
Mhm.
you're going to see a level of his offensive game where, like, it's already going to be good, but I do think he has an entire gear to really discover offensively. And he even talked about that himself in all those interviews where he's like, I'm ready to show what I can do with the bat, because everybody talks about my defense, but, like, I'm ready to do it. And he raked all spring, but, like, I think we're going to see Billy Carlson really continue to take steps forward as a hitter.
Yeah, I think that, like, once I don't want to say there's like a bat path issue, but he does hit the ball on the ground more than you would like.
Yeah.
And, Ryan Fuller has seemingly just been the bat whisperer in the organization since he's been. And, if he can add some lift to his hard hit balls, some of those are going to turn into doubles and homers when, right now being beat into the ground and the shortstop is fielding them. So there's projection in the bat, and when you can combine even just an average hit tool with the type of defense and arm that Billy Carlson has, like that is a everyday major league
Right.
player and a very good one. Like I have written in my notes, like the defense alone is going to give him 2 more. Like it's really good defense, and he's not going to make many mistakes. And he hit the stick at short pretty much his entire career. As long as nothing outlandish happens, I think he's the shortstop of
No,
the
I'm with
future,
you.
really.
I'm with you, man. I think defensively, he's the best shortstop in the system at this point, pretty instantly. Really
100%.
interesting question here in the chat of if Miami doesn't take Ava Arquette and he somehow falls to 10. First of all, in that context, I think Miami would either Parker or Carlson, which would have shifted.
Yeah.
It would have been it would have been a chain reaction. So I don't think that would have happened. But if Arquette and Carlson were on the board, who do you think the White Sox would have taken?
I think I honestly don't know
I still
because
think it's Carlson. I really do.
I my gut tells me Carlson,
Yeah.
but when you have a bat like Arquette where he can impact the ball and yeah, it's probably a third base profile, but like his bat is really good. But I don't even think that, like, let's say Carlson goes 7 to the Marlins. I think the Reds take Ava Arquette at 9. And then the White Sox are picking between
Right.
Steele
Seal Hall
Hall, Jamie
or
Arnold.
right. That's a good point. That's a
Exactly.
very good point. I think the Reds would have taken Arquette there probably at 9 as well. So interesting hypothetical. But Carlson, great pick. Fauski, great pick. Like I said, definitely go listen to that interview I did. We're gonna have some of these guys on soon. It's gonna be cool. I think we're expecting to get some of the the Fauskis and some of these other guys we're gonna talk about on the pod here soon. I'm setting up a bunch of these interviews, which I'm fired up for to talk to these guys, and it's always like my favorite interviews to talk to guys after the draft because they're hype, and like that's the best way to talk to players is when they're like excited to start the professional career. And I just love that. And all those guys are heading out to Arizona this coming weekend. So I know
Yep.
guys are heading out there in the next few days at least. But the Fauski pick, there's just so much to dream on, man. There really is a lot to dream on. I think it's going to be cool to see what happens there because the hit tool's there, the approach is there. But like, this is a guy who just started playing outfield and from everything I've heard is a very good outfielder. Whether it's in center or he shifts to left or right, like he's going to have a plus arm because a catcher throughout high school, right? So like his arm is beyond good in the outfield, right? And then like he's got 55 run grades, which for a guy who was catching for a couple years is pretty. And also like football player throughout his first 3 years of high school. Like I
Yep.
love that. I don't know how much you've like looked into some of the guys like this, but like within the MLB prospect ranks, I love the high school football player baseball dual thing. That's one thing Aram Layden pointed out to me a long time ago. He was like, look at these guys that like play football and just how much good of athletes they are if they play
Yeah,
both of those sports. And then once they focus on baseball, it just continues to get better from a
exactly.
skill standpoint with the physicality already there. I think Jaden Fauski is going to be a good outfielder. He's going to have a good plate approach. And it sounds to me like the power is going to keep ticking up. It's been
Yeah.
ticking up, but it's going to get there. The Milanos were telling me like they've seen, many 400, many plus 400 homers from him MVP and in games and stuff like that. Like it's going to be great. It's going to be good to see these guys develop 2 18-year-olds with just that level of offensive upside. I really do think this was about as good as it could have been from the first 2 picks, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think Fauski was like, I think in a couple years we look back on this, it would not shock me if Fauski was like the third best high school hitter taken. Like the bat, I it
Whew.
I think that the hit and the
Third
power,
over those first 4 in the top 10.
not
I think that'd
shock
be
me.
amazing, but
I love the bat. I think that both hit and power can become above average, even plus tools. Like, and then when you combine that with the plate approach that he has and the defense that is, I want to say he's like new to the outfield, but he kind of is. And if he is able
right. No, you're right.
to play outfield at a good level, like there's no telling how high his ceiling
Yeah.
is, because if he sticks in center field or he ends up to a corner, like that's still a very good overall profile for a
Yeah.
guy that you were able to get with the 44th overall.
Yeah.
And then
100%. Get
do
into
we
the
want
next
to move
pick.
down? Yeah, do
Yeah.
we
Let's
want to
move
move
down
down
the
to
board. Go for it.
Kyle Odis, shortstop out of Georgia Tech, was taken in the 3rd round, pick 76 overall. Lodis is kind of the floor pick. We saw 2 ceiling picks in Carlson and Fauski at 10 and 44. Lodis is a guy he's gonna sort of hit his way through the minors because he's faced better pitching, but then he's just going to be a solid everyday player in the MLB. It's not going to be an all-star type player. He hits righties better than lefties, which is interesting. He's a right-handed hitter. He's got a pretty good plate approach, but it's sort of like passive. But when he does swing, he does a lot of damage. He's probably a second baseman or third baseman. Long term, the range at shortstop isn't great. But one thing that I will knock on Lodis is his Cape performance with wood bats hasn't been amazing. It's been a tick down from his ACC performance at Georgia Tech. So it's something to monitor, but it's not really that big of an issue.
Yeah, yeah. I think Lodis, it's an interesting one because I've heard he is the safe pick, but I've heard multiple people that have told me there's more to tap into there,
It
which
would
gets
not
me
shock me.
interested because you're getting a guy probably at about a lot, right? But considering you're going to have to overpay Fauski, that pick there was going to have to be at or below slot. It's definitely not going to be an over slot guy, I don't think, in the third round there. But with Lodis, it's it's a well-rounded player. It's a good approach. Seems like he's growing into some pop on especially pull side, right? So if you can get a guy with a strong approach, a pretty consistent hit tool who can grow into some more of a pull side pop, then you're looking at a lot more exciting profile. Seems like he's going to be solid at shortstop, but if he doesn't end up at shortstop, then it's a very solid, very base potentially if it's not shortstop. And if he stays at shortstop, great, then that's awesome. I mean, I think he's going to get a chance to stay at shortstop. I actually, I think about this one. I think he's going to go straight to Winston. I don't think he needs to be
Would not shock me.
in Candy right now. And the thing about Winston is that's the place where you've got multiple guys who probably aren't best suited at shortstop, which works out well because you can play an Antonacci at third, you can play a Geraldo Perez at second, and then you can slot Kyle Lodis right into shortstop there, and he's going to get everyday reps at shortstop for the time being. Even if they don't see him there long term, he can be the shortstop guy for at least a while there. If he can continue to play up, the swing is very simple. I really like. I looked at some open side film of him that I just pulled up right now to get another look at it. It's very simple. There's a leg kick, but it's nice and coiled. It's really tight. He finds the barrel well. I think it's just a well-rounded player, and it doesn't excite me a ton necessarily. But I think in the third round, after going with two prep guys, it was the pick that made sense and fit into the general framework of the draft.
100%. And you mentioned hitting the ball in the air and to the pull side. There's a stat that I'm going to save for later, but hitting the ball in the air and on the pull side was an emphasis in this year's draft, and I'll save it for once we're done with all of the bats. But Ryan Fuller's MO is hitting the ball hard and hitting the ball in the air, and every single college bat that was taken this year, that is one of their strengths. So there was a lot of influence from Ryan Fuller on the college bat side, and
100%.
those picks, like being able to pull the ball and pull the ball in the air, is one of the best things that a player can do, because we've seen guys like Isaac Paredes where pretty much all of his homers are 320-foot wall scrapers, but he's able to replicate that swing time and time again and just continue peppering the foul pole. Like it's not the
Yeah.
best for, like overall hitter. Like, yeah, you want to be able to go the other way for a single sometimes, but when you can have the pull side power, like that's what a good hitter has.
Right.
And
And it's
every
solid
single
across the
college bat
board.
has it.
Yeah, it's solid across the board to the extent where it's good, pretty good contact, zone contact. I mean, what I'm looking at here, I think is what we're looking at a 86% zone contact, pretty solid there. He's not gonna strike out a ton. He's gonna have some whiff, but there's a hit or miss there. But I do think it's a well-rounded player. And I think with the rest of the draft, especially when you look at the next pick, it really
Yeah.
makes sense why they went with a little bit of a safer floor style of a hitter at that spot.
Yeah. And then moving into the fourth round, you said it right there. Catcher Landon Hodge from Crespi Carmelite High School in California. That's a great name for a high school, by the way.
Yeah.
He's a left-handed hitting athletic catcher. He is currently hit over power right now at the plate, but he is able to spray the ball to pretty much all fields. He's able to go gap with line drives. It's not a ton of home run power, but you would think once he fills out and sort of get to those top end exit velos more consistently, he'll grow into some home run power. It's a good arm behind the plate, but the rest of the defensive skills, like the receiving and blocking, are a bit raw right now, which is to be expected from a high school catcher. You very rarely see a guy who's immediately plus behind the plate defensively. There are some questions about where his home is. He could move to second base or left field. I've seen both of those listed, but it's not really a sure thing yet. So they're probably going to test him behind the plate right now because there's
Yeah.
no reason not
He's
to.
also he's 18-4, so he's
Exactly.
just 18 a couple months ago, right? Like there's
Yeah.
a lot of time there.
Yeah, he's committed to LSU too. So two LSU commits are being taken out of their commit class for this year. Him and Jaden Fauske were Fauske is the other LSU commit.
Yeah, that was a cool little tidbit there. That are two guys that were, if you're getting identified as a clear talent
Yeah,
offensively, particularly at a school like LSU, it's not a bad place to be. We always like to see that for sure. Quick shout out to our guy Vince. Happy birthday, Vince. We just saw that in the
happy
chat.
birthday.
But yeah, no, I think these first four picks, when you look at them as a whole, like the three prep bats, I think Landon Hodge is a really exciting one. I do think
Yeah,
that it seems like he's trended up a lot in the past, this spring particularly. Like he was a guy that was on radars for sure, but it sounds like he had a really strong spring and circuits. I'd heard the name a good amount because of California and being out there. And I have a buddy who does some scouting in the area who really liked him and said, he had kind of a third round grade on him in terms of the money he thought he was going to get if he goes to the right place. So I'm curious to see what happens, but I think it's good value there at the top of the fourth. And I think it's going to be, a guy who was ranked generally more as like a fifth round or so talent. But I think that considering he's a prep guy and an LSU commit, like you're going to see him get Carly near the slot money because of that.
100%. It would not shock me that this was if this was the first time that the White Sox took three high school players in the four rounds in a very long time. Like I can't remember that. I think the last time they even went prep in the first two rounds was Colson Montgomery and Wes Kath. I'm not sure what
Yeah.
the third and fourth rounds looked like, but
Let's
I'm
see.
pretty sure that was they went high school or they went college in that
I
draft.
think they did too. I'm trying to remember who that draft class was.
Yeah. Or
But
that was the McDougal draft in the fifth, right?
Yeah, McDougal was the fifth, but I think that you're right. I think third round was Sean Burke. I knew that one actually, and
Yep.
then fourth round was Brooks Goswin out of Bradley University. So yeah, there
So
was for three preps in the first four. I don't remember in quite some time for sure.
yeah.
If any time recently at least. So yeah, good start to the draft, and then take me through because I got a little crazy. The fifth rounder is Gabe Davis, and then let's go through the next two kind of duel here. Gabe Davis, the right hander with a lot of up out of Oklahoma State. They went on a run of college guys, obviously, here for the fifth through the 10th after going with the three prep guys early. Another interesting prep guy later. Gabe Davis goes in the fifth round, 137 overall, right-hander out of Oklahoma State. And then Colby Shelton, shortstop infielder out of Florida at the 166 in the sixth round.
Yeah, Gabe Davis out of Oklahoma State. He was injured a lot this year and in previous years. And this year was sort of like a freak accident. Broke his collarbone in the offseason. I'm not sure how,
Oh,
but
I broke my collarbone when I was a kid, dude. It's the worst.
yeah, I can imagine. But he's got good stuff. Like it's a four pitch mix, fastball, slider, changeup, curve, and he can sort of manipulate the slider into sort of a cutter shape at time. The fastball lives in the mid 90s. It tops out at 98. The changeup and slider are both mid 80s. The cutter shape that he can manipulate the slider into is in the high 80s, around 89 to 90. The curveball is good, but it's in the low 80s. It's got really good depth on it. He's got a little bit of, I don't want to say a little bit of reliever risk, but because he has struggled with command at times and he
There's
just
some, yeah.
hasn't stayed on the field enough to put the reliever risk out of mind. But if everything clicks and he's able to stay healthy and like consistently throw strikes, it could be a steal because the stuff is very present with Davis. And if it ends up shifting into a bullpen role, I think he'll do there because the stuff is going to tick up once he gets there too.
Yeah, 7.2 of extension. That's one
Yeah,
thing that stood out with me with Gabe Davis. I remember reading about him when the draft was coming in. I was tracking through the sixth or seventh round and then got preoccupied otherwise. But like I remember checking when the first thing I looked at him was like big dude gets
yeah,
down the mound and
yeah.
has the ability to have a very electric fastball if things come together and if things start to really, wasn't great results in terms of the chase or the whiff necessarily. But I think the stuff continual improvement there with some time in the lab with the White Sox. I think it could play up given kind of the framework there.
100%. And then sixth round in Colby Shelton, a infielder out of Florida. This is a guy that I'm going to keep my eye on in the coming months and next year. He's a really good hitter and is, I don't want to say swing happy because he does chase out of the zone. But when he does chase and even in zone, he doesn't whiff as much as you it's a 12% in zone whiff rate and then like a 35% out of zone. So it's very,
Yeah.
very comfortable for the type of swing happy player that he is. It's big time power for an infielder. He probably won't stick at short. That's where he played in college. He probably moves to second or third, but the arm strength is there to be
I think
able
he could
to
play
hit.
third. I've heard a lot of
Yeah,
third people mention third for him. Yeah.
yeah, he's aggressive right now, but if that can get toned down, I think Shelton is a really good. I've seen guys like Joe Doyle. He had him as like a third round talent. I think it was he had him
Hmm.
like or no, it was even higher. I think it was a second round because he had him top
Really?
60. Yeah,
I didn't see that. Wow.
yeah. If on he broke down the draft today and or on his podcast and he was like, yeah, I had like a second round grade on Colby Shelton. So
You also got to remember he's a little bit older, right? So that's part
yeah,
of it that factors in. He's 22, going to be 23 this offseason, right? So that is kind of one of the factors there. I think that's probably he might have gone the age was a little more on his side because obviously when you go into your first full season at 23, you've got to perform pretty quickly in the minor league ranks.
definitely. And then in the seventh round, this is where senior signs start to come in because,
Yeah, for
want
sure.
to save money and be able to afford the Jaden Fauskis and the Landon Hodges. But Anthony DePino, a third baseman out of Rhode Island, he's got some big time power. But with that big time power comes whiff issues, obviously. But he's got a good approach and plate discipline. He didn't face much velo at Rhode Island. It's an Atlantic 10 school, so exactly facing the top arms in the country. He will probably stick at third base. The range and quickness is going to depend. That's going to be what makes or breaks his third base
Dude,
profile.
yeah, little note on him. 111.4 of a 90th EV is
Yeah.
pretty crazy. So for those who don't know, this is one of my favorite stats in the advanced analytic world for the hitting side is 90th percentile exit velo, right? So it's a little bit better of a gauge of like average exit velo. You're factoring in, weird soft hit, blue grounders or shit like that. And then max exit velo, you're looking at, one swing where it's like, oh,
Yeah.
this guy just absolutely got a hold of a hanging breaking ball. Like, yes, that's beautiful when you see a guy pop a max exit velo of 117 or something, sure. But 90th is a really good gauge of like when they get into their power, what is it going to look like? Not their best swing ever, but a consistent gauge of a strong, good swing. His 90th being 111.4 is one of the, pretty strong for a guy who, is a senior signing money saver.
Yeah, and if you like 90th percentile exit velocity, wait until we get to the, I believe it is 13th round, Rylan Galvin. He's got some
Yeah.
big time power. But yeah, DePino he's another one where exceptional at hitting the ball hard in the air. I'm gonna save the stat that I have after I think it is Derek Serta. He's the last college bat. I'll say it after him,
Yeah.
but it's exceptional at hitting the ball in the air is a phrase that I'm going to be talking about a lot in this draft class. Um, and then Blaine Wink is the eighth rounder. He was a relief pitcher out of Ohio State. Again, like Gabe Davis, injured but had a solid 2024 season. He's got a fastball, changeup, slider mix. The fastball, it sits in the mid 90s, but he can run it up to the changeup and slider are both in the 80s, changeup around 88. The fastball is a cut fastball. It's something that I have seen. I actually asked James Fox to ask Mike Shirley about this when he was doing the media session. There was an emphasis on drafting supinators in this draft class, supinator pitchers. And if you don't know what a difference between a supinator and a pronator is, supinators, you're able to get to the out of the ball really well and sort of cut it almost. And you can't really get on the
Sliders,
inside.
cutters.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Sliders, cutters, all that. With pronators, it's the opposite. You're able to get to the inside of the ball well. So you're able to spin a changeup really well, a good sinker. But with the addition, I don't want to say the addition of the kick changeup, there is a lot of arsenal. You can add a lot of pitches to a supinator's arsenal that you wouldn't normally be able to. And so I think Brian Bannister's seen some of that and gone like, huh, okay, if I can add a cutter and a kick changeup to this guy's arsenal, he's going to take off. So I'm not saying that is or that was the draft strategy, but if it was, it wouldn't shock me because I think there was only one guy who didn't have a fastball with a little bit of cut on it, and that was ninth rounder Riley Eichhoff. He has like a true sinker, but there was a lot of emphasis on drafting pitchers who were able to cut the ball, and is one of them.
Yeah. Yeah, that's an
And
interesting one. What did you see from what was Wink's kind of college trajectory like for him? Because that's not one who I knew too much on his college kind of past,
he was
if you
injured,
know
but
it. That's what I
he
thought,
was
yeah.
in, yeah, injured and spent a lot of time out of the bullpen at Ohio State. I think he made like a couple spot starts, but I don't have the stats
Let's see.
uh, off the top of my head or
Yeah, I
written
mean,
down.
didn't pitch a ton, so it was only 5
Yeah,
games. It was 8 innings last year and 40 innings the year before. So the
yeah.
year before, it was pretty solid results, but it was definitely still a lack of innings for the most part throughout his college experience.
Yeah, and he's a reliever too. I assume he's going to be a reliever going forward.
I
So it's
think so.
not like he's throwing 90 innings every year.
Yeah.
But if we go to the ninth, that's when you get a true starter in right-handed starter Riley Eichhoff out of Coastal Carolina. This was his best season. Out of he had 17 starts, 90 innings in those 17 starts, 11 walks in 90 innings pitched. That is a great number. Pitched to a 3.10 ERA, 7 home runs allowed. Like I said, he's got a 3 pitch mix, sinker, slider, changeup. The sinker is in the low 90s with pretty good arm side run. It's a true sinker. You know, you see a lot of guys who their fastball is kind of in the middle between a sinker and a true four seam. Eichhoff's is a true sinker. The slider is low 80s, 32 inches of horizontal separation between his slider. So that's almost, I think it is 2 full plates of difference. So if you throw a sinker on the inside corner, throws a slider that ends up in the lefty's batter's box. The changeup is there, but it's probably just a work in progress that'll need to develop. The slider got a ton of chase. It was a 40% chase rate this year. You can throw the sinker or slider for strikes pretty much whenever you want. So he throws strikes. He gets a lot of weak contact. It's a
And
starter's frame. There's a lot to like.
a grad signing, right? So
Yeah,
him being a grad student, right? 23 years old, will be 24 this offseason, right? You're looking at a guy who can get some innings. He can be a starter he'll be a starter in Kannapolis soon,
yeah,
probably this year, if not definitely all of next year's rotation. He can be a Kannapolis or Winston-Salem, even a starter at that level. So obviously, these picks, when you get to the back half of the top 10, because you spent big on a Fauski and probably decently big on a Hodge, right? Some of these picks in that 5 to 10 range are going to have to be money savers, and he's gonna be one of those. And I think he's going to get a chance, and it's a good guy to have in your an established track record with a starter profile is a good piece to have, even if it's more of an organizational depth guy, right?
exactly. And if you go, I think that's 4 picks in a row. I want to say no, 3 picks in a row with the fourth, the 10th rounder. I think all 4 of them were senior signings. So
Wink was that year, so he's younger,
oh, okay.
but yeah,
So yeah, DePino, Eichhoff, and the 10th rounder Daniel Wright, who we'll get to here in a minute. They're all senior signings, so they were able to save money and afford the top prep guys where you had to
right,
go over slot. So
exactly.
speaking of Daniel Wright, 10th rounder, picked 286 overall, relief pitcher out of Iowa. This was his best year in college. Pitched to a 3.72 ERA in 29 innings. He can throw multiple. I've seen in his game log there were a couple 3 inning stints on there, so I'm not sure if they want to stretch the starter. I would probably keep him as a reliever, but it's a fastball, sinker, changeup, slider mix. Fastball is in the low 90s, topping 95. The sinker is a good one at 90, and it's got a very distinct shape difference from the four seam. And you see a lot of guys where they can sort of blend together at times, like I said. But there's a true fastball and a true sinker. He's got a changeup in the mid 80s, and then the slider is sort of cuttery in the high 80s. The slider is really the only true breaking ball he has, so it got a lot of chase just because he wasn't throwing it a lot, but when he
Yeah.
did, it got good chase numbers.
Yeah, nice. That's rounding it out with some solid depth pieces. The next guy to get to, I'm curious your take on Matthew Boughton, the 11th rounder, because he was a high school pick, but he's 19 years old, going on 20, which is really unique there for a high school guy, right? So that's the reason you don't see a guy like this. But really good things from the organization in general. Definitely some praise from the organization on what this guy brings to the table. And as an 11th rounder, being out of that initial first 10 rounds pools, I do think he's going to get over slot at that pick at 11, even though he's much older for a typical high school pick. Still a guy who I think will be the one guy in that back half who will get over that 150 mark.
Yeah, and it's interesting to note that Mike Shirley said that they were on him in the 5th round, but then didn't take him,
For
and
money.
then yeah, and then Boughton said, "You know what? I am gonna sign anyways." And they ended up taking him in the 11th, and it was due to his relationship with the area scout. I'm not sure who it is exactly. Thank you, Ian. Um, but yeah, he got, I don't want to say talked into signing, but like he was going to go in the 5th. Didn't end up picking him, and then he signs here 11th. But Bowden is really interesting because my sort of comp for him is up or down Billy Carlson. Like he's a good fielder. The bat has a ways to go. But you're buying the athlete and the projection over what the tools are right now. Like you
Yeah.
said, he's on the older side. He turns 20 in a couple months. But with Boughton, I think that you can stick him in Arizona, let him develop. And I don't want to say he can be sort of Billy Carlson light, but like the tool set is very similar to a Billy Carlson, a great fielder, and just the bat has a bit of a ways to go.
Yeah, no, the arm strength looks strong at short. Definitely seems like someone who's been, capable of handling the position. He's got a lot way to go, definitely, in terms of his development. But it's a really interesting profile, and I think that the White Sox clearly saw something they liked here. And then instead of letting him go to school and be at a guy who was going to potentially not draft for the sake of going to school for 2 years, he would have been a draft eligible sophomore. He takes the jump and takes the chance here. And I do think part of the 11th round thing is they probably are going to go over for him in that 11th round.
Yeah, it would not shock me if he gets the biggest bonus of any day 3 guy the White Sox take, just
I think
because,
he'll get as big of a bonus as anybody's seventh round on because I think he'll get
yeah,
definitely as much, if not
100%.
more, than those seventh through. So he probably is the one overslot guy from the seventh round on.
Yeah, I think there's maybe one more, but I think that this 12th rounder Eli Brown out of Mercer, I think he might be overslot. I could see if it
Tell
was
me, tell me about Eli Brown then, because I like I told you before for everybody, Dylan's done a
yeah.
little more research on the back half of this draft for me. I've caught up with stuff in Atlanta and a million other things, so I honestly don't know as much about this back half guy. So tell me what you like about Brown, because I've heard a few other people mention pretty good things on him too.
Yeah, in my opinion, this is like a sneaky good pick. Like it's great bat to ball skills. It's not like Sam Antonotti where, he doesn't whiff at all, but
Right.
it's good contact skills. It's not a ton of hop in the bat, but he's good at sort of spraying the ball all over the field, like Landon Hodges. It's if the launch angle raises, because he hits a lot of ground balls, you could see a power jump just because he's got like decent exit velos. He just isn't getting them in the air. Like it's a lot of hard ground balls through the pull side, and he's a great. I don't know if you've watched any of his
I
clips
looked
from
at a
the
couple
outfield.
clips. Yeah.
Yeah, he's a really good defender. He started all 60 games for Mercer in center field. Like it's a true contact and defense profile with Brown, but I think that there's more power in the tank with him, and that could turn him into a legit prospect.
And because what you're starting with as a basis is a 90.7% zone contact rate. And that's
Yeah.
something where you see a guy who's clearly got the bat to ball at that point, doesn't whiff a ton. The exit velos are fairly low. But said if you can get a tick up in just kind of strength and ability to impact the ball, definitely a good archetype for a fielder with legit, contact and very strong defense. I saw a few really cool plays there in the outfield.
Yeah, he's one that I'm gonna keep my eye on. I assume that he'll be in Canapolis this year, and if he
Nice.
performs well, I think I could be I could see him getting some top 30 love. Maybe not right away,
Hmm.
but I
All
think
right.
he's the type of player where if the power comes, I think that the overall outlook on his game looks really really good. And
Yeah.
then
No, we'll
speaking of
see.
power, in the 13th round,
Yeah.
Rylan Galvin, a catcher from Texas. Oh my God. What type of power does he have? It is, I believe, the 99.8th percentile in exit velos. I don't have the sheet up in front of me with all the
Let's
stats
see.
that I'm pulling this from. One of my buddies is on he's on a college baseball analytics team. Like he works with the baseball team. He has data on every single college player that has played with a TrackMan in front of that, or played with a TrackMan in their games. So he just sent me this and said, "Go
Yeah,
nuts."
contact rates are super low,
Yeah,
but I
that's
I could definitely get behind a 106.6 or 106.3 90th percentile. That's
Yeah.
some juice for some juice. Yeah.
Yeah, he's got some very severe whiff issues, but the interesting thing is,
Yeah.
it's good swing decisions. Like he's able to
Yeah.
lay off breaking balls. He's almost passive at the plate, like he doesn't swing too much in zone. He's a fastball hunter. He absolutely destroys fastballs when they're thrown to him. The defense is actually what I'm looking at, and it's really good. Like I want, maybe not really good, but it
It's
has.
it's catcher for sure, right?
Yeah,
It seems like it. Yeah.
it improved from last year, and that was one thing the scouts were looking at for him. The receiving and blocking has gotten a lot better. Um, the arm was great this year. Like teams essentially didn't run on him at all. And if the whiffs are cut down, I think that this is a pretty intriguing power hitting catcher. Like I'm not saying he needs to be Jacob Wilson type of putting the bat on ball, but like if you can add like a grade or two, I think that
Right.
it's a really fun player. And interestingly enough, I think yeah, he was ranked 176 by MLB Pipeline, and you got him at pick 376. So maybe he's overslot. I'm
Yeah,
not
a
sure.
lot of places. I mean, I think he's probably not overslot because he's 22 and because he went undrafted last year because he was draft eligible actually as a sophomore last year, went undrafted, had just turning 21 at that point, goes back to school, has another strong year, and even like he hit 14 homers this past year, so the power's
Mhm.
there. Very physical frame for sure. The hard hit rate. So I mean, I've got some numbers from Just Baseball from Tyler Jennings. 3% hard hit rate. It's really strong. The strikeout clip, obviously, there's a lot of whiff there, so you're gonna have to see that come down. But for a 13th rounder, for a guy who easily could have been a 5, 6 round type guy, from what we were seeing initially, like good value. And like you said, I think hopefully they can get it at slot because of his age, because he didn't go drafted last year. But even if it's a bit above slot, I think that's still a guy that you have something to dream on there in terms of the power projection and being able to stick a catcher potentially.
Definitely.
Going on
Uh,
to the next, take us to the
yeah, into
next.
the 14th round, pick 406, right-handed pitcher Max Banks from Washington. This is a guy who throws a ton of strikes and he doesn't allow a lot of hard contact. He spins the ball really well. He's got a starter's pitch mix: fastball, cutter, changeup, slider, curveball. It's not a ton of velo. Fastballs in the or in the low 90s. The cutter is in the high 80s. It's got some good horizontal break to it. Change up in the mid 80s. Slider is his bread and butter. That was his go-to off speed. It's in the low 80s with a ton of sweep, or I don't want to say a ton, but it's got good sweep to it. And then a curveball in the high 70s wasn't used as much. The interesting thing I'm looking at with Banks is if you look at his arm angle, he's coming like straight over the top. Like he's
It's a
almost,
super high arm angle.
yeah,
Yeah.
he's coming straight over the top. And with that, you're able to get a lot of, or he was able to get a lot of chases on fastballs above the zone because, hitters are thinking it's going to come right down into their barrel, stays above the zone, they swing under it. So he's got some intriguing qualities and it's a starter's frame. So I could see
It's
him,
seems like a very consistent strike thrower too. Just
yeah,
really can pound the zone, can make shit happen. And a draft league guy, right? The White Sox have been kind of hammering the MLB Draft League since its existence here the past couple of years too, which is interesting.
definitely. It's a starter's frame, 6'4", 225. So like he's got, I don't want to say he's got some room for velo to come, but like 6'4", 225, low 90s, like there's room to
Yeah.
grow 100%.
Yeah, no, I think that's an interesting pick there. I do think it's good to get another starter frame because there's definitely not a ton of true starters, I would say, in this right now. So it's nice to see to whip in the draft league. It's nice to see that there's another starter profile within this class in the back half here.
Yeah, and there's a lot of, I don't want to say intriguing relievers that could be turned into starters, but like there's some guys where I'm looking at their pitch mix and their frame, and like how are you not a starter? I'm not really sure why you're wasting this sort
Yeah.
of arm in the bullpen, but 15th rounder Caedmon Parker. That's a very interesting spelling. Caedmon.
Yeah.
Caedmon. From TCU. He's another guy who spins the ball well with good stuff. And it's the Banks where the strikes need to tick up for him to be able to stick as a starter. But
Yeah.
it's a fun movement profile. It's a 5 pitch mix: fastball, cutter, changeup, slider, curveball, exact same as Banks. The fastball is in the low to mid 90s, tops 97. The cutter is around 90 with a good movement profile. Changeup is in the mid 80s. Changeup is in the mid 80s. Slider, it's a sweepy slider in the low 80s, and then the curveball is essentially a slur around 80. The changeup got whiffs in and out of zone. Like that was his pitch that he would go to if he needed a whiff. But the slider was a put away pitch. He got a ton of chase on that. So it's an interesting pitch mix, but the strikes are going to need to tick up for him to stick as a starter. And I think if the strikes do tick up, he's got a pretty intriguing mix where you can see a guy like him fly up the system. But if the strikes
Nice.
don't come, then I think he's probably going to be a reliever. But it's
Yeah.
very intriguing stuff.
Good intel for there from a guy, another TCU guy, so another high level competition guy. If a couple of these guys in this pocket are guys that should move fairly quickly, potentially, or at least be able to get to the high level quickly based on their college experience. Caleb Freeman in the 16th, not the relief pitcher Caleb Freeman, the
Yeah.
utility player Caleb Freeman. Tell me about this is another senior signing, so another probably somewhat of a kind of a money saver, but that's what you're going to get in the back half of the draft here.
Yeah, he's a switch hitter, but I don't know if anybody has watched any video on his left-handed swing. It is very, very interesting. Like he starts with his hands above his head, like all the way up here, and sort of like leans back, and then once the pitch is delivered, he hunches back over into like a more traditional hitting stance. But then his swing from the right side is it doesn't have the hands all the way up here. Like it's a very traditional stance, and he's a better hitter from the left-handed side. So I'm not sure what that does for him, like the setup with all the moving parts, but it works for him. He's got a ton of pop, but the contact skills is below average right now. He's got a strong approach from both sides of the plate. It's almost passive. One thing I did see about him is that he is very susceptible to a back foot slider from a lefty when he's a righty. So a back foot breaking ball is going to be the thing that I'm looking for him to get better on. He's got great bat speed. The pull side pop is great from both sides of the plate. And he's actually already signed for $150,000. I don't know if you saw
I
that,
didn't
but
see that.
yeah, already signed for 150,000, and again is great at hitting the ball in the air and to the pull side.
Nice. All right. Next up is Derek Serda, I think, outfielder out of Kansas, who's a junior signing here, so a little bit of a younger guy. Originally from Dominican Republic, I noticed.
Yeah, and the thing that I looked at for Serta, or at least the thing that I noticed when I was looking at his college stats, this was his only year of seeing the field in college. Like he
Right,
didn't
right,
play until this year. So I'm wondering if scouts saw something in his game that they liked and they were like, "Huh, we'll take you here even though you haven't played much." Like I think he only
right.
has 50 games under his belt in college. But Serta is a solid all-around bat. Nothing really stands off the page or is too glaringly bad for him. Again, it's a good approach, almost passive at times. He lays off breaking balls in the zone and out. Like he will see spin, identify it, and just not take it or and not swing. He hunts the fastball. He's a good defender. Again, started. I think he was in 50 games at center field, but he played every single game in center
Nice.
field. So good defender with speed and the bat. There might be some more in there with him.
Yeah. So interesting. I mean, it never hurts to have a defensive center fielder who clearly seems like he can play a good center
Yeah.
field. In addition to some other tools and some more playing time, you never know. It can unlock some other, further things past that. Landon Payne in the 18th round, a right-hander senior signing out of Southern Mississippi. Pardon me.
Yeah, he is another guy who spins the ball well. It's a three pitch mix. Fastball in the mid 90s. It's gotten up to 97. The cutter is in the low 90s with a lot of depth. It's sort of esque, but then the slider is in the high 80s with a gyro shape. Like it is like true sort of like 0-0 on a movement chart. And, it gets a ton of whiff and chase. I don't know if you have the numbers in front of you, but it's a 50% whiff rate and a 48% chase rate. So, like, that is a very good slider. And
Yeah.
again, cuts the ball, has a fastball, cutter, slider. Like, I feel like those three pitches or cutter and slider are the pitches that I'm seeing pop up over and over and over again in this draft class.
No, definitely. I think, yeah, those are the guys that get that type of motion, right? I mean, we talked about that as the supinator guys, like you said. And that's a guy who's just gonna, we're gonna see it. Is it probably more of a relief profile? It seemed to me like more of a
Yeah.
relief profile at first look. So a number of relief guys, right? And that's,
Yeah.
we saw that last year too. I think with the White Sox, I think they have a lot of pitching in the system, and I think you obviously always need to draft some arms to fill out your system. But I don't think they're afraid of some arms that might be that instant reliever, and just can kind of continue to tick up with their stuff and just move quickly as a college arm who can be a reliever, and they can see what that looks like. Even if it's not a starter profile, you're filling out the system with relievers who at least have a big league potential for.
Yeah, 100%. I think that, starting pitching in the lower minors is sort of, I don't want to say there's like a hole or whatever, but like there's guys who probably don't need to be in the system, and you're able to get some
Yeah.
guys in the draft to take their spot.
No.
19, Nick Wyrich out of Marshall. He is a submariner, and I don't know if you have seen
Yeah.
any of his movement. He induces some of the most hilarious swings ever, just because it's such a unique release point and such an uncomfortable at bat. It's a sinker slider mix. Those are pretty much the two pitches that every submariner has. Like if you can spin a breaking ball, you have a slider as a submariner. And he's got the rising slider that Tyler Rogers. Is it Tyler Rogers? I never know which one.
It's Hi, you got me confused now. I
Yeah,
think it's Taylor.
yeah. So it has more induced vertical break than his fastball. So it's coming up
Crazy.
from a really low release angle.
Funky, funky, funky for sure.
Interestingly enough, he's topped out at 94 miles an hour. I'm not sure
Really?
if, yeah, I'm not sure if he'll be able to sustain that or even hit that in a game, but the sinker in the high 80s, sliders in the high 70s. But like if you're a
Why am
submariner
I
and you're
seeing? I'm,
throwing
I'm
nine,
looking at top of 86 on
oh,
one of the spreadsheets.
well, maybe it was a misread. I would not shock me at all.
Because I was gonna
But
say I can't imagine 90s from that angle, but maybe
yeah,
maybe
maybe, yeah. I'm not sure. Maybe he raises his arm slot for some pitch. I don't know. That would be
interesting.
weird, but
Yeah,
anyways, he's a reliever. He's going to create a lot of uncomfortable swings, and he's just going to be a tough at bat. So it's a reliever,
nice.
and I think who's the reliever that they drafted? Jack Young. He was a side armor,
Right.
soft tosser, but
He's been
Wyrich is
really
like,
good.
yeah, Wyrick. Thank you, Ian.
Why, Rick?
He's a true submariner. Like he comes all the way down. So I think that's the first submariner the White Sox system has had in maybe ever. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I don't remember the last time. Final pick here of the draft in the 20th round was Andrew Slinger of Virginia Tech, left-hander. This is the one of the late round picks that I know something about just because I've heard a little bit about him. Um, like outlier fastball, is that maybe not outlier? That might be a little bit of
No, it's an
hyperbole.
outlier.
I think for a lefty, that is an outlier fastball from Andrew Settlinger. Tell me a little bit about him.
He was injured this year, didn't throw a lot of innings, but it's a buy low target, and you're dreaming on the stuff. He's struggled with command at times, and a three pitch mix with a cutter. It feels like I'm a broken record saying this. The fastball was in the low 90s, topping 96 with great carry. It averaged 19 inches of induced vertical break. I know it is popped higher than that because if he's averaging 19 inches, then he's got to mix in a couple 21 22s in there. The curveball is a low 80s, like work in progress. I'm not going to say that it's bad necessarily, but it got hit around this year and it didn't have great movement. The cutter is mid 80s with depth. It's got a lot of vertical from the fastball. The fastball is elite. Like it had a 99.8th percentile in zone whiff rate. Like that is nuts. Uh, the
Yeah.
secondaries the secondaries are going to need to develop if he wants to stick as a starter, but there's a floor to build on with Sentlinger, and I think he's already signed. I think it was him and
He
Caleb
signed
Freeman.
for he signed slot 150, which we
Yeah,
expected,
slot
which is
150.
this is a sneaky good 20th rounder in my
Yeah,
opinion because he may never throw enough strikes. He may not be healthy enough. That could totally happen. But an outlier fastball for a 20th rounder and a left-hander, I'm 100% taking that shot on.
down.
I don't know a ton about him, but the rankings, all the ratings of the heater is great. Needs to find more command, but 6'5", and I've heard he's been up to 21 induced vertical break with that fastball. So it really unique and really impressive fastball. If he can get healthy and continue to hone in on the secondaries, find the command more, like a 20th rounder, if you're getting any elite pitch, it's a pretty good pick in my opinion.
Yeah, 100%. And I forgot to mention the stat that I was going to say after Derek started with the college bats. Every single one of them is in the 65th percentile or higher on pull air percentage, so amount of balls that you hit in the pull side to the air, and
Yep.
pull hard hit rate. Every single one of
All
them is
right.
in the top 35%.
I
So
mean, that's a need, right? Like, I think that's very
exactly.
clearly a need for the organization. I think that's something that the White Sox, the organization lacks to an extent of guys who can really get into their pull side power. There's a lot of guys with good approaches right now. There's a lot of more patient hitters that they've brought into the system in the past year or two. But I think that guys that can really tap into their pull side and really garner some power and see where that power upside takes them is something the org is still clearly trying to get more of right now. So I like it, man.
Yeah, this draft there was a very specific theme that they tried to follow
On
for
both
both
sides of the ball. Yeah.
pitchers and hitters, and they followed it. And I it ended up being one of, if not my favorite drafts that I've covered, or I don't want to say I've covered, but like I've paid attention to. Like I think I tweeted something about it like the day after the draft. After I had
Yeah.
seen all of the picks come in, I was like looking at everything in totality. Like this is my favorite draft class that the White Sox have had under Mike Shirley.
All right, man. Well, I don't know. Yeah, we'll see what happens. I don't do
Yeah,
grades. I'm not giving a letter grade, but I do like this class
yeah,
overall. I think you started with two really good upside picks. You filled it out with some more kind of safer floor guys. You got some exciting upside in some of your some of your senior signings, some of your your late round guys. You got some guys with some upside. You got some different two profiles on each side of the ball that you're targeting. There was a strategy, there was an aim, and there was a vision here. Whether that vision results in success, we will see over a couple of years, right? But there was clearly a intent with this draft, and I always like to see drafts that are done with a clear intention. So excited to see what happens. We're gonna get a lot of these guys on soon, so make sure you're staying tuned with FutureSox here. We're gonna have a number of these guys on for interviews here in the near future. So I'm definitely excited for that. And Dylan, thanks for going to work, man. I know this was the first year where I feel like you definitely had me in terms of your lock in, and
yeah.
I was doing a million other things, so I'm
Well, yeah,
excited to
you
get
were
to
having
learn
from
about this
Atlanta.
stuff. Yeah, no, the Derby was sick, man. That's something that I've never done in my life, and that was pretty one of one experience. Neil Cruz put balls over the chop house. That was
Yeah,
pretty ridiculous. The flight path of a home run like that when you're in person it's a whole nother beast. The 500 plus feet is like. I know this. We got off the White Sox here, but it was so insane seeing the way the
yeah.
ball just jumps off some of those guys' bats in that type of context. Pretty unbelievable stuff. But anyways, man, yeah, this was great. I'm glad I got to some more you and everybody listening. Make sure you're checking out Dylan at not cease on X. I'm at Elijah EV8, doing all different types of prospect stuff. We're gonna have a lot more coming. We're 2 weeks out from the deadline, man. So next
Yep.
week, I think now that we've done the draft, two big things coming up for Future Sox. We got to rank the top 30, man. We've been talking about
Yep.
it time and time again, but we got to re-rank this 30 and add in 4 to 5 to 6 draft guys. We're not
Yeah.
sure exactly. Everybody one is gonna have a different. I've got at least can't decide if I have anything beyond 4. I know
Yeah.
we've
I
probably
think
got
4
somewhere
is my
between
number.
4 to 6 guys are going to join the top 30 from this draft class. The other thing, trade deadline, man, it's mock draft season, so we're gonna
Yep.
have to get to work, man. We're gonna have to get in the lab next week. When I get back in town, we got to do mock drafts and we got to do top 30 update here in the next month or so for that. So stay tuned with us at Future Sox, and yeah, well, it's Thursday right now, but yeah, we might just record Monday too. Why not? There's a lot to talk about. So
Who cares?
all right. We will talk to you next time on the roundup. Thanks everybody for tuning in. You guys dropping some comments in the chat, and we'll talk to you next time on the roundup.
Thank